A cruise worker can smile, apologize, and search for a solution, but some requests cannot be granted, no matter how much money you offer. Behind the service are rules protecting safety, privacy, and the worker's career. Break the wrong one, and the crew member could disappear at the next port. Number 10. They can't skip a safety drill. Now picture a crew member finishing a late shift. The last passenger has finally left the bar. The tables are clean, the uniform is off, and there may only be a few hours before the next shift begins. Then the alarm sounds. Now for a passenger, a safety drill can feel like an interruption. For the crew, it's part of the job. They cannot roll over, silence the alarm, and decide they already know the procedure. They must report to the station assigned to them, check in, and practice the exact duty they may need to perform during a real emergency. And that duty may have nothing to do with their normal position. The person who pours your wine could be responsible for controlling a staircase. A dancer might guide passengers toward a muster station. A housekeeper may be assigned to check a block of cabins. A waiter could be responsible for helping passengers put on life jackets correctly and keeping a passageway clear. Cruise ships operate with formal muster lists. Those lists assign emergency responsibilities to specific crew members. The goal is to move thousands of people in the right direction without panic or dangerous crowding. Now, drills can happen when a crew member is tired, preparing to go ashore, or sleeping between shifts. Safety training does not wait for convenience. You may see a smiling server at dinner. The ship sees a trained person with an emergency assignment. And when that drill alarm sounds, the second role immediately becomes more important than the first. But some rules don't begin with an alarm. They begin with a passenger quietly asking a worker to pretend something never happened. Number 9. They can't erase or change an official record. Now imagine a passenger damages something in the cabin, becomes involved in an incident, or receives a charge they don't want appearing on the final account. The passenger finds a crew member, lowers their voice, and offers cash. Hey, just leave it out of the report. Now that may sound like a small favor. It is not. Cruise workers cannot knowingly falsify a company record, remove important information, invent a timeline, hide a transaction, or change an incident report simply because a guest is influential, embarrassed, angry, or willing to pay. Now, a ship creates records constantly. There are maintenance logs, security reports, medical reports, working hour records, inventory counts, financial transactions, cabin access records, and written accounts of accidents or complaints. These documents help the company reconstruct events, identify repeated problems, and decide what requires attention. Suppose a worker conceals a wet floor that caused a fall. The passenger may be pleased that the incident disappears, but if another person falls in the same place the following day, that missing report suddenly matters. The same applies to broken equipment, aggressive behavior, unauthorized access, or suspicious activity. One dishonest entry can distort the entire investigation. A genuine mistake can usually be corrected through the proper process. That's very different from rewriting the story to protect someone. And the amount offered does not change the rule. $20 cannot buy a missing sentence. $500 cannot buy a false time. A luxury suite guest cannot purchase a different version of reality. And the next rule may seem far less serious, yet it reveals how closely the crew line controls the image you see in passenger areas. Number 8. They can't lean against walls or railings. A crew member may have been standing for most of the day. Their feet hurt. Their back is tight. There's a wall beside them and a polished railing only inches away. But in many guest-facing positions, leaning against either one can be treated as unacceptable. Now, this is not an international maritime law, and the exact standards vary by cruise line, department, and supervisor. It's usually a presentation rule. Passenger areas are considered the ship's public stage, and crew members working on that stage are expected to look alert, professional, and ready to help. Leaning against a wall can make someone appear tired or disengaged. Folding their arms can appear defensive. Resting on a counter can suggest, well, they're just waiting for their shift to end. Fair or not, cruise hospitality is built around appearances. The ship must feel polished and carefully managed. Railings can be treated even more cautiously. A worker casually leaning over one may create a poor visual example in an area where passengers are repeatedly reminded to behave safely. The crew member is expected to model the posture and conduct the ship wants everyone else to follow. Now, that does not mean workers never sit, rest, or relax. They do, but much of that happens behind crew-only doors, away from the guest experience. The passenger sees the straight posture. The passenger does not see the aching legs and how many hours remain in the day. So when a crew member stands perfectly upright during a quiet moment, it may not be natural enthusiasm. It may be training. So their posture is controlled in public, but what they reveal through a phone camera can be controlled even more carefully. Number 7. They can't show you everything behind crew-only doors. A cruise ship naturally creates curiosity. Passengers want to know what's below the theater, behind the galley doors, inside the crew corridors, or beyond the sign marked authorized personnel only. A friendly guest may ask a worker for a private tour. Another may offer money for a video from the bridge, and an engine control area or a security room, a food storage space, or the crew accommodation decks. The worker cannot simply decide that curiosity is harmless and open the door. Cruise ships are also operating vessels. Restricted areas can contain safety equipment, technical systems, passenger data, security procedures, and machinery guests are not authorized to approach. An innocent-looking video can reveal more than expected. That's why crew members may face strict rules about photography, social media, and sharing non-public operations. Some workers are permitted to create approved content. Some lines organize controlled behind-the-scenes tours. Those situations are different because access, timing, and filming have been authorized. A private arrangement with a passenger is not authorized simply because no harm is intended. The same applies to crew living areas. A passenger may want to see what a crew cabin looks like or visit a crew bar, but those spaces are not attractions. They're restricted workplaces and homes for people who have very little privacy while living at sea. Even a large tip cannot turn a crew staircase into a passenger shortcut or make a locked operational door suddenly available. Now, the ship protects what happens behind those doors, but the most sensitive information a worker handles may not involve machinery or security systems at all. It may involve you. Number 6. They can't tell people who you are, where you're staying, or what happened to you. Suppose someone approaches guest services and asks for your cabin number. They say they're your friend. They know your name, your hometown, and the ship you boarded. Their story sounds believable. The crew member still cannot simply reveal where you're staying. Cruise workers may encounter passport details, payment information, medical concerns, cabin numbers, security reports, and travel plans. Knowing that information does not give the worker permission to share it. The request may sound harmless. Is a former partner aboard? Which suite belongs to a celebrity? Why was another guest taken to the medical center? The safest answer may be no answer at all. Even confirming that a person is on board can create a problem. The worker may not know whether the question comes from a worried relative, a debt collector, a stalker, or someone involved in a private dispute. A convincing story is not proof of permission. That's why the correct response may be to take a message, contact the guest internally, or refer the matter to security instead of releasing information directly. Privacy also applies online. A worker should not secretly photograph an identifiable person or expose a private incident for entertainment. Fame does not erase that protection. Information may be shared with authorized medical staff, security, officers, or law enforcement when operationally necessary. That is different from gossip. A crew member may know exactly which cabin you're in and still refuse to tell your own traveling companion. That can feel unhelpful in the moment, but in reality, it's the same protection you would want if the person asking were someone you did not want to find you. And after protecting your privacy, the worker must also protect their own ability to respond when the ship needs them. Number 5. They can't become intoxicated just because their shift ended. And when passengers finish dinner, the night is only beginning. They can order another drink, visit the nightclub, sleep late, and treat tomorrow as somebody else's problem. A crew member does not have that same freedom. Alcohol rules vary by cruise line, rank, and job. Some crew members may be allowed to drink in designated areas while off duty. Others may face tighter restrictions. But no worker can safely assume that being off the clock means they're free to become heavily intoxicated, ignore company limits, or report for duty impaired. A ship operates 24 hours a day. A crew member may be called or reassigned, and fatigue combined with alcohol can impair judgment and reaction time. Illegal drugs create an even clearer boundary. Possessing, using, selling, or distributing them can trigger serious disciplinary and legal consequences. A ship may cross several jurisdictions during one itinerary, but that does not create a floating loophole where every substance becomes acceptable. Now imagine a passenger repeatedly buying drinks for a worker. The invitation appears generous. The passenger may even become offended when the worker declines. But the worker has to think beyond that moment. Company policy, tomorrow's shift, random testing, emergency readiness, and a contract that supports a family at home. The difference between passenger life and crew life is simple. You're on board to switch off. They are never completely disconnected from the operation around them. Now, a free drink can threaten that responsibility. An envelope of cash attached to a special request can threaten much more. Number 4. They can't accept money to break a rule. Tipping and bribery are not the same thing. A legitimate tip rewards service. It thanks a cabin steward, bartender, porter, waiter, or guide for work they're already allowed to perform. A bribe offers something valuable in exchange for doing what the worker knows they should not do. Now that could mean ignoring prohibited items, serving someone who should not be served, opening a restricted door, hiding an incident, changing a charge dishonestly, revealing private information, or giving one passenger an advantage unavailable through the proper process. The request usually sounds casual. Hey, no one needs to know, just this once. But money does not erase the cameras, access records, receipts, supervisors, witnesses, or digital systems surrounding the transaction. Cruise workers live and work in the same controlled environment for months. The passengers offering the cash may leave the ship in 3 days. The worker remains there, facing the consequences. The amount can also make that trap worse. A small payment may look like a tip. A large payment makes the improper exchange harder to explain. Now, once the worker accepts it, the passenger may accept further favors or threaten to expose the arrangement if the worker refuses. That is why, at any price, matters here. There's no magic number that transforms unauthorized access into authorized access. A $100 bill cannot rewrite a security policy. A luxury watch cannot purchase confidential information. And VIP status cannot compel a worker to risk a career. Now, for more guidance that helps you understand how ships actually operate, the free Cruise Smarter community includes extra tips, practical modules, and deeper cruise advice. So money cannot buy an exception, and friendliness cannot buy access to the most private space assigned to you on board. Number 3, they can't enter your cabin for a personal reason. Crew members enter cabins every day. Stewards clean them. Room service staff deliver food. Maintenance workers repair equipment. Medical and security personnel may enter when their responsibilities require it. The purpose matters. A crew member cannot use those legitimate duties as an excuse to visit a passenger privately. They cannot accept an invitation to come in for a drink, continue a personal conversation, attend a cabin party, or spend time behind a closed door simply because the passenger insists that it's harmless. Some cruise lines state this boundary directly. Crew may enter guest staterooms only when performing shipboard duties. The rule protects both people. A guest cabin is a private space with no public witnesses. If a disagreement, accusation, injury, missing item, or misunderstanding occurs, the situation can become serious immediately. Even completely consensual contact can create questions about professional conduct and whether the worker used their position improperly. From the passenger's perspective, the invitation may feel ordinary. You met an entertainer after a show, enjoyed talking to a bartender, or became friendly with an activities host. You offer a drink and assume the worker can decide freely. But their freedom is limited by the contract and by the enormous imbalance in consequences. You could wake up embarrassed and continue your vacation. They could be removed from duty, investigated, or sent home. That is why a crew member may refuse even when you're certain the invitation is innocent. The refusal is not necessarily rejection, it's self-protection. Now, the cabin door is a clear boundary, but the relationship itself can cross another line even in public. Number 2, they can't turn professional friendliness into a passenger romance. Cruise workers are paid to be attentive. They remember your drink, ask about your day, laugh at your jokes, and make you feel recognized among thousands of passengers. That level of attention can feel personal because it's delivered personally, but it's still part of the job. At least some major cruise lines explicitly prohibit crew members from engaging in physical relationships with guests and restrict socializing beyond professional duties. Exact policies differ, and certain officers, entertainers, or hosts may have different privileges in public guest areas. But professional warmth does not automatically give a crew member permission to begin an onboard romance. A mutual attraction does not remove the employment risk, and neither does the passenger making the first move. The worker is still representing the company, living under shipboard rules, and dealing with a guest whose experience the company has a duty to protect. And the boundary can be crossed before anyone enters a cabin. Suggestive messages, secret meetings, or physical contact can be reported, and digital messages remain after the voyage. The practical risk is obvious. On a ship, a personal dispute can instantly become a workplace investigation involving an employee and a paying guest. So the charming bartender may genuinely enjoy talking to you. The singer may remember your name. The host may seem unusually attentive. None of that means they can safely accept an invitation that goes beyond the role. Now for you, it could become a dramatic cruise memory. For them, it could become the final entry on their contract. But even that rule becomes secondary when the ship enters a real emergency and every crew member's assigned duty takes effect. Number 1, they can't choose one passenger over their emergency assignment. Imagine you're halfway through dinner when the alarm sounds. The waiter has just placed your meal on the table. A bartender is pouring a drink. Performers are backstage and housekeepers are moving between cabins. Then everything changes. Every crew member has an emergency card or assigned responsibility that has been trained before the voyage. Those responsibilities are arranged so the ship can account for passengers, control movement, communicate instructions, prepare life-saving equipment, and prevent one blocked corridor from becoming a larger crisis. The system only works when people follow it. A well-meaning worker who improvises may leave another area without coverage, duplicate somebody else's task, or give passengers instructions that conflict with the bridge. This is why crew members practice the same movements repeatedly. In a real emergency, smoke, darkness, noise, or frightened passengers can make familiar places confusing. Repetition reduces hesitation. The worker is not choosing a task in that moment. The task has already been chosen for them. So during a real emergency, crew members must follow the ship's command structure and report to their assigned stations. Their normal jobs become secondary. The person who was serving you seconds earlier may now be responsible for an entire staircase, cabin zone, muster station, fire team, communication point, or group of passengers. They cannot abandon an assigned position to remain with your family or search for belongings after officers order passengers toward safety. Now that can feel cold, but emergency plans depend on every worker being where expected. An uncontrolled stairway, an unchecked cabin zone, or conflicting instructions may endanger far more people. VIP status, a large tip, or a genuine friendship cannot alter the muster list. The worker may still help you, but only within the assigned role. The ship must respond as one coordinated system. So that's the hidden truth behind cruise hospitality. The uniforms, smiles, and polished service can make the crew appear to exist entirely for your comfort. They do not. Their highest duty is preserving life, maintaining order, and helping bring everyone home. So when a worker refuses you, remember the smile may hide a rule they cannot bend. Respecting those boundaries protects their livelihood and your safety. So click the next video on screen. I'm sure you'll love it. Travel with calm control, enjoy the moment, and remember, your voyage is just beginning.